Good morning. I heard the fall party went well last night, and I was disappointed I couldn't go, but I've been down sick for a few days, and you might notice my voice is not very strong this morning. I hope that I don't start coughing, but if I do, my apologies. I've also been kind of hanging out in the front, and probably won't go to the back just in case. I don't want to spread anything to anybody else. I'm not trying to be rude this morning, but it is good to see you all this morning, and there's a word on the screen behind me. That's a word that I've heard in many different scenarios as far as social things. It's the word authentic. And as a school counselor, I tell you that I couldn't count how many times I've had a discussion, got in the middle of trying to, bring down some contentions and disagreements and arguments among students or whatever, and I hear this idea, they're not authentic, or if they don't say that person's fake. That's the way that we kind of use it now. And as we're thinking about this idea of authentic, it is something that we see throughout a lot of things. And it's something you know when you see it, and it's something you know is missing when it's not there. And I was thinking about just the definition of this word just quickly, of what it really means to be authentic. It's of undisputed origin or genuine. So in that relation, we might be talking about something that is authentic as far as history, or a relic, or something, an antique, or something like that it's authentic, and it's not a knockoff, or a remake, or a rebrand. It's made or done in the traditional or original way. You might hear someone talk about, an authentic, and maybe they're talking about the way they make a certain drink, or a certain food, or a certain blanket, or something like that has been created or crafted in what they consider the original way. Or we might talk about something based on facts as accurate or reliable, but really this morning we're talking about the idea of being real and not fake. If you have your Bibles open, hopefully they're still open to where Brennan was just reading from, the book of Matthew in chapter 16, because we're going to spend all of our time this morning basically there. And we're going to be talking about what's really authentic when it comes to Jesus. And it's so vital and so important for us to understand Christianity and the church and all these things, because if we don't have the authentic Jesus in front of us, and we're building on that which is not authentic, anything we build on that is genuinely not going to be what it's supposed to be. In the book of Matthew, again, in chapter 16, as Jesus is asking a question here, he's going to make the statement, or they're going to make the statement, rather, that Jesus is recognized by people as being someone special. And then he's going to turn it and ask them what they think. So look at this first part here again, verse 13 of Matthew 16. He says, "Now when Jesus came into the district of Caesarea Philippi, he was asking his disciples, 'Who do people say that the Son of Man is?' And they said, 'Some say John the Baptist,'" which is an interesting thing because they were contemporary, though by this time John had been beheaded. "Others say Elijah, but still others Jeremiah or one of the prophets." Now, I don't think they literally thought one of these prophets had been resurrected, but that he was in their likeness, that he was a prophet of God, that he was someone that God had sent. So the people had recognized that Jesus was at least someone from God and someone special. If we opened up, for example, the book of John chapter 3, we might remember that Nicodemus came to Jesus at night saying, "We know you're a man sent from God, for no man does the things you do unless he is sent from God." So they do recognize that he has these powers, these qualities, these realities that make him appear to be someone from God. But he turns around and he asks a more pointed question. And then he says to them, "But who do you say that I am?" It's almost as if he's saying, okay, did people hear what I've said and what I've done and what I've preached and the miracles I've done and all these things? Who do they see me as? But you spent time with me. You've walked these years with me. You've spent time in houses with me. You've gathered around the fire with me. You've spent time walking from town to town. Who do you say that I am? And of course, Peter is generally the spokesperson of the group. He is one of those who maybe sometimes is more like us. He acts before he thinks. But in this occasion, he especially acts, and he's right. And he proclaims, he says, but you are the Christ. And that is the kind of the Greek form of the word Messiah. You are the Christ, the Son of the living God. I mean, this is a statement that is profound to who Jesus is. And it's so vital that for us to not just get the words that are associated. This is a title that Jesus has, and this is a title that Jesus has, and he's King of Kings and Lord of Lords, and he's Prince of Peace, and he's Messiah, and he's Christ, and all these different titles. But what it really means, he's the Son of the living God. He is deity in the flesh. And as Peter makes this proclamation, of course, we know what comes after that. Peter says, blessed are you, Simon Bar-Jonah, for flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but my Father in heaven has revealed this to you. And I say to you, I see you too. You're Peter, but on this rock, not who Peter is. If we want to get to the Greek and talk about Petros and Petros, and one being a boulder and one being a pebble, on this rock is a boulder, something you build on, and Peter is a pebble. That's not what he's talking about. On this confession he made that he is the Son of the living God, on that I will build my church. See, if we understand who Jesus is and the authentic version of who he is, everything about Christianity and the church are built on that idea. If we get that wrong, everything we build on it then is flawed. So why did Peter make that proclamation? Because he saw it, he lived it, he understood it. But why did Jesus say that? Because this is this is the most important thing to realize when it comes to who Christ is. And it comes to all the things that follow after it. So if we just take that a little bit further, and I just mentioned this, verse 17, he says, he compliments him, he gives him praise, and he says, on this rock, this reality, this foundation of who he is, I'm going to build my church. And the gates of Hades will not overpower it. And by the way, that is the word Hades, not the word hell. And I know King James uses those back and forth, but the word hell is the word Gehenna, and it means a place of torment. Hades is the place of disembodied spirits. So I don't want to get us confused, but just read death. The gates of death will not prevail against it. In other words, this world of living and dying has its limits. But the church does not. It extends into eternity. And it's built on this reality that Jesus is the Son of God. It's not built on some great, passionate, logical disposition of words, but on the truth of who he is. I feel like sometimes as people, we think something is true if we like how people argue for or against it. But here, he's not even making that argument so much as what his words are, though those are important, but who he actually is. And that is a world different than the one we live in. We live in a world where people's words outlive who they are or are greater than who they are. And I don't mean to be disrespectful, but we know a lot of people we've lifted up as characters of people we should follow and that we should learn from and so forth, that when you look at their lives, they weren't necessarily great people. We think of a lot of our founding fathers, which we might greatly respect their work and so forth, but their lives are filled with all kinds of problems. Doesn't change their words, doesn't change the power of what they did and the wisdom that they had, but their lives and their words didn't always match. And that may be true for a lot of things. We think about religious leaders who have come and gone. We think of political leaders. We think of even maybe our own family members where we really idolize so-and-so in our family, maybe grandma or grandpa or mom or dad, and then we realize, they're not as perfect as we thought they were. And that's okay. That's just the reality of our world, but that's not true when it comes to Jesus. He's exactly who he claimed to be. And you can't go back and find things and say, well, you know what? Well, he said he was the Son of God, but look, he did this over here. Everybody was looking for it. Everybody was seeking out a flaw. If there was a flaw to be found in Jesus, they would have found it. They set him up with arguments. They dissected his family. They looked at every interaction that he ever had and ever did. They made up things, and they still wouldn't stick. Here's the reality that I hope that we can gain from this. It's that trueness, that authenticness, that realness of who Jesus is that makes all of this not just possible, but powerful. So I got a couple of things for us to think about in light of this. And again, we're just going to kind of stay camped out here in Matthew 16 and listening to what Jesus has to say and sit at his feet for a few minutes and realize that he is proclaiming something bigger than an argument between this religious friend and that religious friend, but that he is talking about who he actually is. But as we do that, in a world full of churches, back in the 2000s, I guess the last time I checked, it's been a while. I don't even know how you could check now. But at that time, there was supposedly over 3,000 quote-unquote Christian denominations in the world. Just think about that for a second. In our world today, you have a church who is in the same evangelical movement. Each church is kind of their own thing and whatever. It would be impossible to distinguish that now. In a world full of churches, what did Jesus mean when he said, I came to build my church? What's right? Not just right in general, but what is Christianity supposed to look like in 2025? What's authentic? We get caught up in all kinds of things. We'll get caught up in the style. We get caught up in aesthetics. And I'm not beyond that too. I get caught up sometimes in aesthetics. We might get caught up in, like I said, style. We like this preacher and the way he preaches, or that preacher and the way he preaches better. I like to go verse by verse as we study, or I like to take bigger passages, and then we say this one's good and this one's bad. We think, well, if it doesn't look like it did when Grandpa, then it's not authentic. What makes it authentic? What it's built on. There's a movement, I don't know if you're aware of this, but there's a movement inside the United States as well as some other places back towards religion. This has been a huge decline in religious beliefs in the United States for decades. It has been slowly, and then sometimes fastly, moving towards a non-religious world. But over the past 5 years, 10 years, there's been a distinct population movement towards religion again. And you know what I find interesting in that is it's not what you think it would be in most cases. I think most people would think that people are going to the rock show. They're going to the churches with the lights and the bands and the smoke and the whatever, getting entertainment. Those places are filling up. I understand that. But the distinct movement is back towards things like Catholicism and Eastern Orthodox and things like this. And I'm trying to think, why are college kids all of a sudden interested in Catholicism and Eastern Orthodox and things like that? Because they have this idea that it's older, so it must be more authentic. Because guess what they have found in this world? Nothing they have tried so far is real. It's all empty. So they're cutting themselves short. They need to go beyond those older viewed churches. They need to go back to Christ. And so do we all. Look back at the text with me for a second. If we're going to ask what is Christianity, or what is the church supposed to look like, or what is, we have to ask who Christ really was. If Jesus is just a religious figure, that it doesn't really matter what we look like or what we do. And I'm not talking about the way we dress or things like that. I'm talking about as people, how we interact with the world. But if he is the Son of God, if he is the Son of the living God, then nothing else matters. If he said it, then it's true. If he says that this is going to hurt you, you have a pretty good chance to know that that's going to end up hurting you. If he said that there is peace here, we know there's going to be peace here. If he says there's going to be salvation here, we can trust those words. And that's what's so important about what is truly authentic when it comes to Christ. Let's go back to the text, Matthew chapter 16. And look down with me at verse 13. Again, he was traveling. The place where he was doesn't really matter. But he was traveling down from Caesarea Philippi. And he asked his disciples, saying, "Who do men say that I, the Son of Man, am?" Now, if we were to ask that today, we were to say, who does the world around you say that Jesus is? How would you answer that? Obviously, answer it to yourself right now. We're not probably in the best spot to field a bunch of answers, but I'd say there are going to be some pretty common ones. You think about the people you work with, the people you go to school with, the people you live next to, the people that you interact with. And how do they view Jesus? They view him as an antiquated idea from the past. They view him as someone who brings a bunch of debate and contention, division. They view him as a fraud or not real. They view him as the myths of people from gone by centuries. Most likely, that's the views of many of the people you're around. Now, there are people that you're around, I hope anyways, that believe that he is the Son of God, that he is the Messiah. But it matters in answering who he is, because all these people saw the same evidence, and they cut him short. They said, listen, saying that he was like Elijah, saying like he's like Jeremiah is not a small thing. I'm not trying to be disrespectful to those prophets, but those prophets were no Jesus. Right? So when he turns around and says, okay, but who are you? Who do you say that I am? Sorry. And you know what was interesting to me? Is Peter answers rightly, and I appreciate that, and I think we should all appreciate that. But what allowed him to answer rightly was the time he spent with him. We try to have Christ and Christianity on a budget. I really want you to hear me on this, because I believe this is true, and if you disagree with me, that's okay. I've been wrong before. I'd be glad to sit down and talk to you about it, but I just want you to think about this for a second. As a people, we tend to want Jesus on a budget. We don't want him to take up too much of our time. We don't want him to be the source of too many of our decisions. We don't want him to be the judge of our actions. We just want to pay enough that we can have the insurance policy at the end of this life. Now again, I'm speaking generically. I'm not speaking about you individually, and you need to consider that on your own. But is that not true? Look at our world. And if you were to send out forms that people were to fill out, and it says, what is your religious preference or affiliation? And people put Christianity, and they haven't walked in a church building, they haven't said a prayer, they haven't opened a Bible in 40 years. I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just saying that we want that idea of, okay, if I die, I'm going to go to a good place. But until then, I want to do things my way and the way I want to do them. Do we really see Jesus as who we claim to be? It's not, again, it's not about the punishment. I know there's punishment, there is torment, there's hell. That is all real. I'm not trying to debate that this morning. I'm saying it's more about the direction, though. If I really believe that he is who he claimed to be, would I want to hear him? I've used this example many times in the past, but already even here. But when I was growing up, the main kind of sports figure was Michael Jordan. And we all, growing up, we're on the playground, we're whatever, bouncing that ball, we all thought we were Michael Jordan. I just used this example the other day. I mean, 10 years old, we're, doing layups with our tongue hanging out like we're, going to be in the NBA. We drank Gatorade, which tasted nasty when I was a kid. I mean, I'll appreciate it much more now, but, because Michael Jordan drank Gatorade. And you laugh at me, but I know that you all had that person in your life that you looked at and you said, I want to be like that person. If Michael Jordan put out a series of how to play basketball, you know what? If I could afford it, I would have bought it. And I would have listened to everything he said, and I would have tried to do everything he did. You know why? Because I believed in him. He was authentic. If I believe in Jesus, he is who he says he is, and he's authentic. Yeah, it matters how I worship. That matters. Yeah, let's listen to him on the worship. Let's listen to him on salvation. But what about life? How I live, how I carry myself, how I talk. Where I put my meaning and purpose and all those things in life. That's what Christianity should look like in 2025. Jesus can't just be my salvation. He has to be my life. And if we really study the Word of God, he can't be our salvation unless he is our life. What makes it authentic? You know that Jesus is without sin. We know he's without blemish. He was a perfect sacrifice. And all those things, we repeat those things. We rehearse those things. They're all true and they're all good. But nobody can do the things that Jesus can do. Nobody. You can't fake what he does. You can't fake what he offers. He is truly, if anyone was authentic, it's Jesus. There are no flaws. You can look back at my life and you see many times, I'm sure, where I've professed and taught and tried to do and tried to teach, and then, well, I didn't do it over here. We talked about, the Bible says this morning, an occasion, we referenced it anyway, where Paul had to call the Apostle Peter out at Antioch because he was playing a hypocrite. The Apostle Peter. But Jesus stands alone in that category of being what is truly authentic. It's not just about authority in that passage, but it's identifying the authentic nature of Christ. The reason why he can build this church is because of who he is, not just what he says. And there are going to be a lot of people in this world who have really motivating speeches. Words that can dazzle. Words that can get people to run through walls. And people will follow after them. But there's only one Jesus that can save a soul. There's only one Jesus that can give you true meaning. There's only one Jesus who can give you a reason, not just for tomorrow, but for today. This morning, I want to give great thought to what we've read together, but I want to do it this way to wrap up. If you had a choice between temporary richness, however you viewed that, if your view went to Scrooge McDuck and swimming around in a, in a big vault of money, or if your idea of richness was traveling the world and grandness, or whatever it is, if you had a choice between temporary richness or eternal peace, what would you choose? If you had the choice between following someone who has a lot of ornate words, beautiful sayings, or following someone who maybe didn't always have the most pronounced statements, but the most real ones, who would you choose? If you had a choice to live a life where you didn't have to worry about anything, everything would be taken care of for you, but at the end of it, there's nothing left. That's it. Or a life that's going to see a lot of ups and downs, hills and valleys, richness and poorness, but at the end is eternally beautiful. I wonder what motivates our choices the most. I tried to give 3 different scenarios there. There's that idea of wanting peace and not have to be going through hard things, or the idea of being rich and not having to want, or the idea of whatever it is. Underneath that is what truly we're following. And I think for most of us, unfortunately, it's not Jesus. We're following fear. We're afraid if we don't work the extra shift, if we don't do the extra thing, if we don't go to the extra place, somehow we're missing out on things. We run ourselves ragged, and at the end, we're missing out on the most authentic thing ever. We sing a song sometimes, just a little walk with Jesus. I guess you all sing that here. I don't know if we've sang it here since I've been here, but there's a little story that goes with that, with a Bible school teacher teaching her class, and she's starting some questions there as they get their class opened, and she was asking, who the first man was, and little hands are going up, and Adam, and who the first woman was, and another little hand goes up, it's Eve. And then she asked the class who Jesus' father was, and little hands go up, and Joseph, and they're doing really good. And then she asked a weird question. She thought she would kind of trip them up because everybody hears Jesus Christ, and she was going to try to explain what the Christ was and not part of his name. So she said, what's Jesus' full name? And they all looked at each other, but little Johnny's hand shot up. And she said, Johnny, what's your answer? And he said, Andy. She was confused. She said, Andy? Where did you get Andy? We sing it all the time. And now she's really confused. She's like, what do you mean we sing about Jesus' name being Andy? She said, Andy walks with me, Andy talks with me. We sing that song. And I go back to where Peter was. He walked with him. He wasn't sitting on the sidelines hearing and seeing and being told about things. He experienced them. He walked through the good. He walked through the hard. He walked through the blessed. He walked through the want. And he got to know who Jesus really was. That same invitation has been given to us. Will we walk with him today? Will we seek him? Will we obey his gospel? This morning, if you have need to respond to that gospel call, we pray that you make it known. and know that we are here to help you along the way. We're journeying too. We're going to have our faults and our flaws, and we're going to fall down, and someone's going to have to help us pick us up. And if you're one of those today that needs someone to help pick you up, well, this morning would be a good time to let that need be known as we stand together and sing a song of invitation.
Christ your God, so marred by sin, He will create anew, make whole again your empty, wasted years. He will restore, and your iniquities remember no more. Bring Him your every care, if great or small, whatever troubles you. Oh, bring it all. Bring Him morning fears, the nameless dread. Thy heart He will relieve, and lift up thy head. Blessed Savior of us all, almighty friend, His presence shall be ours unto the end. Without Him life would be how dark, how drear, but with Him morning breaks, and heaven is near. Please be seated.